Hey, welcome folks. It's OGDuffy's latest versus video, and my god, is it a scorcher. It's not just really hot down here in the south this week, but this is quite a hot title too. So here's to 1985's Atari's Paperboy. It was a great game, okay? Now this was suggested by Stuart Crooks's missus. Stuart Crooks's missus suggested this one. So, who am I to ignore? I listened. So, also, bit of a spin on this. We're going to be looking at the arcade version in a minute, as always. But I'm not just doing my usual competition of Commodore versus Spectrum, with occasionally the Amstrad thrown in. We'll be looking at several 8-bit systems, okay? And here we go. We're going to be looking at the BBC Electron. We're going to be looking at Commodore Plus 4. Yes, the Commodore Plus 4. The Commodore 64. The Amstrad CPC. The Sinclair ZX Spectrum. The Nintendo Entertainment System, and finally the Sega Master System. So that's a total of 7 versions in this versus video. So sit back, kick back, relax, grab yourself a beer or your tipple of choice, and we're going to look at the arcade version, and then we're going to look at all of the systems that I just mentioned, and then you'll be getting my verdict from 7th down to 1st. To see who wins it. Let's go. Okay, as always, we'll take a look at the arcade version. This was released by Atari. I do believe Midway were involved with the development of this also. It was from 1985. Now, the very first thing that struck you about this game on the arcade was the cab itself. It featured a unique controller, which was a set of handlebars with a couple of fire buttons either side, so you could fire the newspapers. This was used a modified yoke controller from the Star Wars cabs that Atari produced earlier. So a very unique looking cab which drew you in. Basically, in a nutshell, the gameplay is you're a paperboy, you ride up and down the street, up the street should I say, delivering newspapers to those that subscribe. Now the subscribers' houses were generally the brighter white looking houses, in this case blue, and the dark greyed out houses were the ones that were non-subscribers. So you had to deliver the papers. If you hit them in the actual mailbox, you got bonus points, or you could just land them on the porch. Obviously, making your way along, if you're non-subscribers, like this house here, you could throw papers and smash their windows and things like that. Basically, you make your way along, avoiding all the oddballs that were in the neighbourhood and trying to, you know, wipe you off your bike and stuff. And the level would always end up with a course, which is coming up now, which was like a BMX course, of course, because it was the 80s after all, and hey, everyone owned a BMX. So there you go, you'd make your way through the obstacle course at the very end of every level, and or every day should I say, because you go from Monday through to Friday and stuff, and getting new subscribers and what have you. And then that was it. Great game. So let's see how this converted to the home systems of the day. And a first for OGDuffy, we're going to look at the Acorn Electron and the BBC Micro version next. First off with this version, or versions should I say, this is the BBC Micro version and the Acorn Electron version. Now, I'm showing them both together like this because they were both exactly the same. So what you see is what you get on both systems. There is no difference at all in either of them. Now, firstly, I was really surprised to see this on the BBC Micro and Electron. I didn't know it existed, so it was a new one for me. As you can see, it played a bit blocky the way the animation of the actual Paperboy worked out. But, you know, it was a surprising conversion, like I say, and one I didn't know even existed. So, overall, not too bad if you look at it. I mean, I was quite surprised by it. I didn't have an awful lot of knowledge of the BBC Micro and Electron back in the day. I did from a school perspective, of course. That was purely for educational games. Now, another positive with this was the collision system. Worked very well, the collision on this, so the programmers did that well. As you can see, fairly basic. This was the level at the end, of course, which we're going to show for all systems. So, did you remember this on the BBC and the Electron? Because I didn't, so let me know in the comments. Good shout, BBC. Well done. So this is the Amstrad CPC version. As you can see, very colourful and looks quite good. It was a nice looking copy of this. Now, issues with this were the screen seemed to be very zoomed in to me, which detracted from the gameplay in respect of it didn't give you enough time to see what was coming, what was approaching, etc. So that was poorly done. Also, zero sound on this, not even a basic sound effect when you threw the papers and things, which was very, very surprising. On a positive note, it controlled well, and like I say, it looked very bright, but apart from that, it was quite lackluster, really. I mean, that zoomed in look alone was enough to you know, ruin the gameplay for me, because as I say, you just couldn't see what was coming up. So again, I mean, gameplay features highly on this. I mean, to look at visually, very nice, very bright and everything else, but let's be honest, it's a video game. So alright, video, we want it to look nice, but gameplay is always very important for me, and unfortunately the zoomed in effect, lack of sound, everything else just didn't do it for me. So sorry, Amstrad fans. Do you remember this? Let me know in your comments. Do you agree or disagree with my comments on this? Let me know. Here we go, this was the Sega Master System. Again, a first for OGDuffy. We're incorporating a couple of consoles from the day, their conversions in on this video as well. Now, as you can see, graphically, this was brilliant. Scrolling wise, everything, it worked very well. It was a good, speedy game. And it was, you know, the sound was interesting on this though, because if you listen very closely, that's not the Paperboy theme, but it's a reworking of Moon Patrol of all games. So there you go, bit of trivia there for you. So actually uses the Moon Patrol soundtrack and not the Paperboy soundtrack. Quite what that's all about, I don't know. I'm sure someone at Sega could explain it. But overall, a really, really good conversion on this. I mean, I wouldn't have been disappointed if I'd have got this for my Sega Master System back in the day, which was a system I thoroughly enjoyed actually. It come with the Hang On title by Sega, and obviously this was an Atari conversion, but it was a very good effort. One of the better ones maybe, I don't know. Do you guys remember playing this on the Sega Master System? Or did one of them consoles that passed you by, were you more an NES fan of the day? Because it was either Nintendo Entertainment System or the Sega Master System. Which one were you? But anyway, that's it. Here we go. And then the assault course, of course, to finish. And boom, there it is. So this was the ZX Spectrum version. To my knowledge, there was no difference between the 48K version and the 128K version. But if there is, I'm sure someone out there will tell me in the comments, because let's be honest, you guys really do know your stuff when it comes to retro gaming, and that's what I always like when you guys comment and stuff, because it's always very educational, and after all, every day's a school day. So anyway, this was the specky version, monochrome of course, but I liked the way they designed this and they worked it. I mean, it scrolled well, and I thought the graphics were quite sharp actually for Spectrum. This version, in terms of playability, I felt it played really well. The controls were great, the controls were really responsive, and it was a good playable version, and one I thoroughly enjoyed revisiting. Obviously I've got a lot of love for the Specky. It was one of the machines I had growing up, along with the Commodore 64, before, you know, eventually getting into the consoles, and the rest is history, so to speak. But this was a very, very good version. As I say, the controls were good, graphics were nice and sharp, sound, very basic sound, as you can hear, just sort of the blip noises for the delivery of the newspapers, and no music. And strangely as well, on all of these versions we're looking at today, not one of them featured any sound in relation to speech sound that was from the original arcade. But that was the Specky version. Good turnout.
Now this version here is the Commodore 16, C16+4, I believe, was the title of this computer, home computer. My understanding was that this was brought out by Commodore to sort of be a cheaper alternative to the Commodore 64 of the time, and I think this sort of took over from where the VIC-20 left off. If I'm wrong, I'm sure someone out there will correct me in the comments, because as I said earlier, you guys really do know your stuff. So this was a system I had not much knowledge of in the day, and I don't really know anyone who owned one, to be fair. As you can see, I had a bit of a problem with this, with the speed. It might just be me, but it seemed to me to just be singular speed. I couldn't get it to sort of slow down or speed up at all. It's a very basic sound, and unfortunately this version didn't feature the assault course at the end of the level. Bit of a shame, but there you go, the +4 version. So here we go, the Nintendo Entertainment System's version of Paperboy. As you can see, it was bright, it played quite well, the controls were fairly responsive, but there was something about it. I think that graphically it was the minor things. I mean, the houses looked good and the street layout and stuff was good. I think Paperboy himself was a bit ropey, and some of the sort of the people that get in your way and all that, I don't think graphically were the best. Musically though, this was the version that actually tried to emulate the arcade tune the best. I mean, that guy's meant to be breakdancing, but I don't know quite what was going on with him there. Looked like he was having some sort of a fit, bless him. But you know, so it was not overall weren't bad, but something was just lacking for me when I was playing this version. So not a bad effort. Not the best, maybe, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys remember owning this? If I recall, I think Tengen released this on the NES. I could be wrong, but as always, one of you guys will tell me otherwise. Here's the assault course level, and as you can see, it varied from the arcade on this. It just changed it up. But sort of, I think they're meant to be sort of rivers in a way, but it looked like little brick walls to me. But hey ho, there you go. That was the Nintendo Entertainment System version. What do you think? Let me know. Next up, the beloved Commodore 64. As you know, on this channel we love these ZX Spectrums and we love our Commodore 64s. This version of Paperboy for me was a funny one. I found the controls were not as responsive for gameplay wise as it was on other systems. Overall the sound was pretty decent, graphically it was pretty good, a bit blocky for the main character and some of the like break dancers and that you come across, a bit blocky, but that was Commodore's style, that's what it looked like. Strangely, this was probably the hardest version of all of them that I played. This was really tricky. It seems to me there was like a lot more sort of enemies or you know, obstructions on your levels, even on, you know, the first level here, than there were on the other versions. This was the hardest, but it was difficult to the point of it was quite irritating in terms of difficulty. I mean, this level here shows it very well, and it was played brilliantly on this, but it was actually a very difficult version, the hardest of all of them that I played, so that in itself sort of detracted a bit from the gameplay for me. But there you go, that's the C64.
So that concludes all versions. Wow, what a lot of versions there were, and some I never even knew existed. Okay, so we're now going to go through them in my order, the order of where I think they come. Now, before we do this, if you don't already do so, please do hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. It helps grow my community and it gets a lot of our debates going, all that, etc. It's brilliant. And if you already do subscribe, then a massive thank you to all you guys. You're brilliant. You're awesome. Thank you very much. And equally, don't hate on the video if your system doesn't come ranked where you think it deserves to be. But do let me know in the comments where you think it should have come. Also, what are your memories from this game? What system did you play it on? What system did you own it on? Did you play it around friends' houses, etc.? Did you like the arcade version, yes or no? Let me know in the comments. Let's get some conversation going. It's always good. So anyway, let's get to it. In 7th position, it is the BBC and Electron version. Right, now first off, I didn't even know this existed on the BBC, to be fair. So it was interesting to visit it. You saw it, you saw what it did. Strangely, it controlled quite well, and the collision, etc., it was quite good. So for that, it was good, but graphically, it was all a bit dodge, really. But hey, you know, 7th position, good effort. And in 6th position, the Commodore Plus 4, okay? For this system's limitations, it actually did quite a good little job on it, really, to be fair. The controls were all right, but I struggled with the speed. I couldn't seem to control the speed correctly. I had a bit of an issue with that. Maybe that was just me, I don't know. But hey, it's in 6th position. In 5th position is the Amstrad CPC. Now this was a really colourful job, and it played well, it controlled well, but the two issues I had with it: no sound at all, not even basic sound effects, nothing, nada, not a thing, and the screen was stretched so you couldn't quite see what was coming and stuff, which affected the gameplay slightly for me. Okay, so 5th position, Amstrad CPC. In 4th position, some of you aren't going to like this, but hey, it's just my opinion. But let me know in the comments if you disagree, as always. Commodore 64, okay? The controls on this weren't brilliant compared to some of the others, and I found it was the hardest version that I was playing out of the systems I played. It was definitely the hardest, but it wasn't hard to be for the sake of, you know, just being difficult. It was actually irritating. So that's the reason the C64 is coming in on 4th position. In 3rd position, another controversial decision maybe, Nintendo Entertainment System version. Okay, now Paperboy is a great game, as we know, but this played okay, and it was pretty good. But there was just something about it. It was good, you know, and it was one of the better versions. So I haven't got a lot to say negatively, because it played overall very well. But graphically, it wasn't as nice as one of the others. Anyway, so Nintendo Entertainment System in 3rd. Now, as I said, it's controversial, but in 2nd position, the Sinclair ZX Spectrum version. Now that probably comes as a bit of a shock to some of you guys, you know, how did it beat the NES? Now I'll tell you why, alright? Alright, graphically it was monochrome, which as we know most Spectrum games are, but for me, the graphics were quite cute, they were quite sharp, it weren't too bad. But what did it for this version for me was the playability. Honestly, it controlled really well, and in terms of playability, maybe it's easier than the other versions, which in my opinion made it more playable, and I really enjoyed visiting this version. I think they did a great job for the limitations on the Spectrum, so an awesome 2nd position. Again, I'm sorry, don't hate on the video. Anyway, 1st position goes to, obviously, the Sega Master System, because it's the only one left. But as you can see, when I showed you, it was just awesome, it played well. It was a great version, colourful, graphically was great, sound was good, and it was a good all-round version of it, and it controlled well, and the collisions and stuff were brilliant. So that concludes the verdict for Paperboy. Remember, as I say, healthy debate, always good. Anyway, if you don't already subscribe, please do so, and look after yourselves, stay hydrated in this heat, I know I am. And finally, I'll see you all next week for, I don't know, for whatever else I've got planned. Stay good, look after yourselves, happy days. If you watched the video and you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe for more great videos. Thanks for watching.